Good morning, everybody. Hi, it's lovely to see familiar faces and new people as well. Great to see you all. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Cristina Pertierra. I'm the Associate Dean of Research here in the Faculty of Design, Architecture and Built Environment at UTS. It's my pleasure to welcome you here in person and online for today's event. I'd like to start by acknowledging that those of us in the room are meeting today on Gadigal country, where sovereignty has never been ceded. I think now more than ever, it's important to remember that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So I would like to acknowledge Gadigal elders past and present, and I'd like to extend that acknowledgement to our colleagues and our students. It's our pleasure, but also our responsibility to be thinking about and learning from and listening to First Nations knowledge as a core part of the work that we all do here at UTS and in our respective institutions and fields of practice. So I am going to welcome my colleague and friend, Professor Heather Horst, who is also a co-host of today's event. Obviously, the real boss of the event today is Melissa Gregg, who's coming up in a second. But first, I'd like to introduce Heather, and it's a real pleasure to have this opportunity to collaborate with both of you, actually. Heather is one of the chief investigators for the ARC Centre of Excellence for Automated Decision Making and Society, which is the centre that is running this entire series of electronics ecologies days. Sessions. So over to you, Heather. Welcome. And enjoy the day, everybody. I'll be here for the whole day. I look forward to the conversations. Thank you.
Okay. So thanks very much, Anna. And I want to thank both you and UTS for actually physically hosting this event here today, as well as doing the online hosting. It makes such a difference to be so central to a city. We at Western Sydney, we are central, but to other aspects of the city. So it's great to be here. I'd also like to add my sort of acknowledgement and gratitude to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and the many lands that we're all working on today. So I'll just be very brief. I just thought I'm sort of here with two hats. I'm here, as a chief investigator at the Western Sydney node of the ARC Center of Automated Decision Making and Society in the center itself. So I'm really pleased to welcome you here today. For those of you who don't know, the ARC Center was developed to create the knowledge and strategies necessary for responsible, ethical, and inclusive automated decision making in an expanding array of intelligent technologies, from deep learning to blockchains, et cetera, which promise to solve some of the kind of challenging problems that we have across many sectors, from healthcare and social services to transport and media. And such work necessarily involves a liaison with computer science, mathematics, engineering, as well as design. I know many design colleagues are here today, among other disciplines, in addition to industry experts. So I'm very excited today, and I'll let Mel do the proper preamble for this session, but I'm really excited that Dr. Mel Gregg is here today. I think, as many of you know, she sort of cut her teeth in this sort of the kind of center of excellence. She had other forms of centers of excellence from before. She worked at University of Sydney for a number of years until she left us to join Intel in the US. And we're really, really excited that she's back and that RMIT and the center has really been able to engage her in this work. So there's lots of exciting things with her here, but I'm particularly excited. We have, as I mentioned, we've been looking at health and social services and other sorts of things, but there's a real sort of impetus in the center that perhaps wasn't there when we started 3-4 years ago. To really look at, now we're sort of looking at the kind of material infrastructures and ecologies that result from all of these new algorithms, all of these new electronics, et cetera, that are very central to their actual operationalizing in the world. And so we're really excited to have Mel here to do, this is the third session or the second? This is the second of a series of 4, I think. And so on behalf of the center and Western Sydney and myself, I welcome Mel and look forward to today's conversations.
We have a lot of technology which is fitting for this event. And I'm going to have to do a lot of mixing here because one of the features of this series is to make use of the very technologies that are under discussion in order to democratize the conversation about automated decision-making in society, but also, as you'll hear today, some of the things that are not being addressed in public debate about AI right now. But before I get to that, I just wanted to thank Anna and Heather. When I first wanted to have this series, ideally the vision was to bring people together in local contexts and to also offer a platform for especially young scholars, activists, policymakers, and also people working in industry to share information, to share best practice, and to also get involved in the work of understanding the sector, the electronic sector and the high-tech industry. And so I couldn't think of a better location than here at UTS to have that conversation. I've learned a lot since I arrived in Sydney about what's happening locally in Ultimo, in this precinct, where for those of you online, we're right in the centre of Sydney, what's called Central. And so we're right next to one of the main broadcasters, and this school and this university is really behind a lot of the training for professionals who go into the professions of design and engineering and architecture and others that we'll be really addressing with the content today. So I'm just really grateful for Anna to not only for a chance to get together again and reminisce over our early career, but to see what an impact you're having here in Sydney and in the training of the professionals that we really want to have equipped with the knowledge that we'll be sharing today. And Heather, your resilience through so many events right now is just a testimony to your commitment to the field as well. And thank you for adding to your many events that have been happening. I was lucky enough to join one last week that Western Sydney was organising on the legacy of Bruno Latour, an STS scholar, a philosopher, and someone who I was very infatuated by when I first went to work at Intel. I had the pleasure of hearing him speak in one of the major computer interaction conferences, CHI, in 2013, and it was just like probably the highlight of that year for me to hear his work and seeing the scholars that you'll also hear speak today engage with his work and talk about the environmental impacts of what we do is really what we're here to discuss. So thank you for the energy of being here, but also thank you for your support. And the Centre of Excellence, the ADM+S Centre of Excellence is quite an unruly and large operation. So being here in person in Sydney really makes a difference to me, and I hope to all of you. I appreciate that we have people who are staying up to talk to us this morning, so I won't go on in too much detail. I think you know why we're all here. Part of what I'm trying to bring to the agenda on the ADM+S Centre, both as a board member and now as a visiting professor or industry fellow, I believe is the official title, is a focus on hardware. So there's been so much discussion of AI and new technology in the press lately, especially with the release of very exciting new applications, large language models, image generation services, etc. But one of the things that I've been concerned about is that, especially in a place like Australia, where we are very closely attached to the extraction industries that go into the electronics that then process data, it's a fitting place for us to have a conversation about the ecological impacts of this industry from end to end. And so when I did call for papers for this discussion on waste today, I was intending to have a much broader ranging set of papers, to be honest with you. I was hoping to get a little bit more upstream, as they say, because really the conversation we want to be having about electronics and their ecological impacts is that this discard that we will be also discussing through Gay's work, the discard studies discipline has brought to our attention the fact that there is waste at every step of the production process, from the moment that silicon is refined from sand and all the way through to the different forms of manufacturing, assembly, shipping, and delivery to you as a consumer. There are carbon emissions involved at every stage. And so the last work I was doing at Intel before I left in January was to set up a product team focused on tracking those carbon emissions. And we'll be talking a little bit about that in some of the later sessions. But we don't really have a great language for that in the humanities and social sciences. And so what we've decided to focus on today is the way that this field of discard and waste studies that has been established over the last decade or so from some of the people in this room, how that actually gives us a lot to work with in application to current debates about carbon emissions and the circular economy in high tech. And so that's where we're headed in this set of talks that I've put together with thanks to all of you today. And I think there's going to be a really rich dialogue between the conceptual language of the humanities and social sciences, the business opportunities in realizing value from waste, and also the way in which partnership and collaboration is going to be necessary with industry and academia to make sure that the future we're building is actually sustainable. So I did want to just mention that this context of waste, and I think the personal connection I've had working at Intel over the last few years, I just wanted to share one anecdote. You know, when Pat Gelsinger joined Intel as CEO, I do remember the moment he said in an all hands that we're going to exhaust the periodic table in the interests of servicing Moore's law. And I think it was that phrase that made me realize that I would not be able to continue working at a company with that kind of mission, because it really epitomized for me the insatiable appetite for resources at any expense in the service of accelerating high-performance computing. That was the agenda from now on. And while there is really legitimately great work happening in sustainability within these companies, we need more help to hold them to account for the impacts that they are having on the local geologies and geographies of their production. And that's why I couldn't think of anyone more fitting to invite to speak to us first this morning, because our first speaker is somebody who has seen some of this up close. And so as we transition to some of the discussions, I just wanted to paint that picture, because quite literally, the way that the destiny towards AI is currently being portrayed, we're not really getting a chance to have a say in how the Earth's elements are being transformed as a result. So the ADM+S has been doing a great amount of work looking at the human impacts and the societal impacts of software and the applications once the hardware is built. This series is really designed to make us also think about those other more than human impacts, to use the language that we were using in the seminar last week. So what are the impacts on the environment and also the place, the land, and the location where we live and work?